Hello everyone, FlareonXIII speaking. This is a second part of Persona 4 Golden Road to Platinum. So if you haven't watched the first part, please go ahead and do it right now and then come back. Thank you. And also, by the way, there will be spoilers right from the get-go, so be careful. So after Teddy's social link is finished, from this point onward, our main objective is to uncover the true killer of Inaba and put the end to the fog and the killings plaguing the town. The town actually becomes shrouded in a sickly green fog almost constantly, and rumors spread that the fog is poisonous, causing many people to stay at home or even experience mental breakdowns on the streets. After several days of investigation, we are presented with a list of possible culprits to choose from. This is another critical juncture in the game where it is still possible to get a bad ending. However, by carefully connecting the dots and piecing together the hints that have been given throughout the game, it becomes clear that the real killer is none other than Adachi, Dojima's subordinate, who has been involved in the case from the very beginning. So the team confronts Adachi and he confesses to all of his crimes. He reveals that he killed Mayumi, the TV host, and Saki Konishi by throwing them into the TV. He also manipulated Namatame into believing that he was saving people by bringing them into the TV world to keep them alive. And if you have been leveling Adachi's social link, we can actually choose to confront him alone at certain point. This confrontation leads Adachi's social link of the Jester Arcana to transform into Hunger Arcana. And actually here's a couple of my observations regarding the Jester and Hunger Arcana that Adachi represents. While not included in the standard tarot deck, it is evident that the Jester can be seen as a reversed or negative representation of the Fool, symbolizing a loss of direction or deviance from the right path. But regarding Hunger, I think it's a bit more complex. In the Japanese version, it is referred to as
欲望
which can be translated as lust. And since I actually have a degree in Japanese language and literature, I think that a more appropriate translation of yakubo would be desire. My point is that just as the protagonist progresses from the Fool to Judgment, Adachi undergoes a similar journey, but it takes a malevolent path, transitioning from Jester to Hunger. Considering that the Judgment represents rightful retribution and fairness, Hunger represents the absence of judgment, with absolute power resting in the hands of a single individual. And now that we have discovered the true culprit, we gain access to the final dungeon where we can confront Adachi. However, before doing so, we still have some time to spend in the fog-ridden town of Inaba, completing more social links. The next social link, and actually it's very important for the playthrough, it's Mary's social link. Her social link is one of the two new social links introduced in Persona 4 Golden, and the game constantly reminds us to prioritize it and complete it. The reason for this emphasis is to actually gain access to a secret dungeon after the final one. And initially, I thought that it would also be necessary for the true ending, but it turns out that it's not. Even if you don't complete Mary's dungeon, you can still reach the final dungeon and achieve the true ending of the game. Her social link can be divided into two parts. The first half is reminiscent of Margaret's social link in Persona 3, where you accompany Mary around town and show her various places to help her learn about the world. Occasionally, you also meet some of your team members, leading to some nice and comical situation. My favorite scene is the shopping scene, where Mary playfully mocks Chie for always wearing green, and Yukiko for always wearing red. The second part of the social link revolves around unraveling Mary's identity, since she has no memory of her past. The only clue we have is an old bamboo comb that she carries in her bag. After inquiring about it, we discover that the comb is quite old and unique, but we don't go much further than that. Eventually, Mary gives up on trying to remember her past and decides to focus on creating new memories with the protagonist and her new friends. To be honest, I don't particularly enjoy that social link. The first comical part was fun, but the second part felt aimless, I would say. I understand that it serves as foreshadowing for the Hollow Forest, but I wanted a more engaging and captivating storyline. Mary's Arcana is Aeon, and while not in the main tarot deck as well as Jester and Hunger, it is a counterpart of Judgment, which also represents self-search and awakening. The romance route with Mary is also quite a lackluster, to be honest. There are no additional events apart from the Valentine's Day. And actually you will still get a Valentine's Day event with her even if you don't pursue romantic relationships. So, what's the point? Overall, I would place Mary's social link in the C tier alongside Teddy and Shu. And the next social link we go into is Death Arcana and Lady Hisano. Old Lady Hisano's social link explores profound themes of regret, survivor's guilt, and nostalgia. Her story revolves around the recent passing of her husband, leading her to lose the will to live and refer to herself as death. Throughout the social link, we learn the full story of their relationship. Hisano's husband was an actor, and during his visit to Inaba, they fell deeply in love. However, due to his acting commitments, they had to spend time apart, communicating throughout letters and rarely meeting in person. Eventually, her husband left his acting career and moved to Inaba to be with her, working as a simple laborer. But tragedy struck when her husband fell ill, most likely suffering from Alzheimer's disease, which caused him to forget his memories, including those of Hisano. Despite her dedication to caring for him, Hisano grew detached over time and even felt a sense of relief when he passed away. She shares her profound grief and guilt over her feelings of wanting him to die, as well as the pain of witnessing him lose his memories and die completely alone. With the protagonist's support, she eventually finds a reason to live and decides to honor her husband's memories by accepting her children's invitation to live with them. This social link actually delves into very mature and challenging emotions that not everyone may fully understand, but it resonates with those who have experienced similar hardships in life. Coping with loss, survivor's guilt, and finding a reason to live again are deeply human struggles, and Old Lady Hisano's story portrays them very vividly. I cannot fully relate to that, but I know people who do, and one thing I know for sure, it is never easy. Hisano's arcana, death, truly embodies its meaning. When in the reversed position, death symbolizes stagnation, decay, and an inability to move forward or let go. However, in its upright position, death signifies more than just the end of the cycle. It represents the potential for a new beginning. It encapsulates the transformative nature of life, highlighting the importance of embracing change and offering opportunities for growth and renewal. So, considering its depth and emotional exploration, I would place the social link in the B tier. Its short length does not diminish the impact of its narrative, making it a noteworthy addition for our growing social link collection. And from Lady Hisano we are moving on to Naoto, and I have to say, this social link is one of the hardest to max out. First of all, Naoto joins the team fairly late in the game, so you obviously do not have a lot of time to max her out. Secondly, her social link does not start automatically like with most other team members, and you actually need to find a trigger. Also, the attribute requirements are quite high. You have to have maxed out intelligence and courage. Her romance route is also not a cake in the park, because you actually have flags in her dialogue, like, you know, in a real date sim. Not that I know a lot about date sims. But basically, if you respond wrongly during one of the events, it will close the romance route forever. So anyway, her social link starts when you talk to a man in a suit in the central shopping district. He will give you a card meant for Naoto. When you give it to her, it will appear that someone is threatening her or stalking her. So she will start an investigation and you will help her throughout the social link. Interesting thing is that during this social link, the best answers that net most friendship points are the ones when you really help her advance the investigation. Not like with other social links where you basically need to tell people what they want. And for a bit of context, Naoto is an heiress to a famous line of male detectives. That is why she is also dressed as a boy all the time. Mainly because she thinks that people will not take her seriously because of her femininity. So she's basically a negative kanji. Yeah, and no wonder Kanji has a crush on her. He's a boy kisser for sure. But jokes aside, how come someone really believes she's a boy? I mean, it was like a big reveal during her arc, and I was like, are you guys for real? She's clearly a girl. She was a girl all the time. I think the first time I played Persona 4, I didn't really understood why everyone is like fussing about Naoto being a boy, because it was obvious for me that she's a girl from the very beginning. Anyway, as you progress throughout the social link, Naoto is being terrorized by a mysterious phantom thief. Persona 5 foreshadowing, anyone? Someone breaks into her manor, and yes, she lives in a manor, and steals some stuff. And basically the notes, or let's say the calling cards that someone places in her shoebox at school contain clues to find those things that were stolen. One more funny thing is that sometimes Naoto would receive love letters from other girls who think she's actually a boy. Again, what the hell? What is interesting to me is that Naoto always discards those love letters, saying that she doesn't have time for that, but she is never really concerned that she receives love letters from other girls. Which makes me think that she's actually swinging both ways. Which makes me think that if Atlus would make a remake of Persona 4 someday, and they would add a female main character like they did in Persona 3, you would actually be able to romance Naoto as well as the female character. And that actually would be nice, because I think think I've read that in Persona 4 and Persona 5 there were supposed to be like gay romantic roots for the main character, but either they didn't make it into the final version of the game or they were cut or whatever. But I think it would be great if you have that option. Okay, but I digress again, I'm sorry. As we untangle the puzzles and find more of Naoto's detective memorabilia, it will eventually be revealed that the Phantom Thief is none other than her own grandpa. You see, he was worried about Naoto and her concern that she is not taken seriously by other people because she's a girl. So eventually he decided to play this trick on Naoto and remind her that she decided to become a detective because she really liked untangling mysteries. In the end, she realizes that she can be a detective and a woman at the same time, that all these aspects are herself. It's actually pretty nice closure if you ask me. And her arcana is the Wheel of Fortune, and it's one of the most symbolically rich arcanas that I find quite challenging to pinpoint. From the various descriptions I have come across, the Wheel of Fortune represents luck, or perhaps in a broader sense of meaning, fate. The central idea behind the Wheel of Fortune is that both good and bad events occur simply because they do. Sometimes one experiences bad luck that is not influenced by their action and happens outside of their control. This concept deeply resonates with Naoto as she actively strives to change the unchangeable. She constantly faces diminishment from others, such as the police dismissing her involvement in the investigation due to her being a minor, or facing challenges in the male-dominated detective profession. Naturally, she attempts to adopt a more mature, masculine persona, but ultimately cannot change the fact that she's still a teenage girl. And oh god, that did not age well. I hope I won't get cancelled for this. This is Arcana lore, just in case. And eventually, this struggle leads to her demotivation and difficulties in finding inner peace. The resolution of Naoto's social link clearly signifies the Wheel of Fortune shifting to an upright position. She eventually accepts that there are certain aspects of herself that she cannot change, and instead of resisting, she chooses to adapt and pursue her goals as herself. And her romance route is very cute as well. I already mentioned the flags. At some point you should start kindly encourage her feminine side, but the unique thing with Naoto is that you can actually confess your love to her around rank 7 or 8, but she won't answer to you until rank 10, which is actually not typical for a social link. Overall, I would place this social link at S rank because of how strangely detailed it is. Hell, there is even a moment where you can tell her that you like her voice a little bit higher during rank 10 event, and much later on Christmas she will change into her female uniform because of that. That's crazy. And low-key, I won't deny that I like nerdy girls like Naoto, so yeah. S rank all the way. And the next social link is between Eri Minami and Yuta. You can initiate the social link by taking up a part-time job at the daycare. There you meet Yuta, an energetic young boy, and his stepmother Eri. Right from the start there is an evident problem. Eri is struggling to connect with Yuta, who rejects her because she has only been married to his father for 6 months or so. Complicating matters further, Yuta's academic performance is not great, and he often gets into fights and causes trouble at school. This leads to teachers and other parents gossiping about Eri's ability to raise Yuta well. As a result, Eri just withdraws and distances herself from these issues. Initially, you discover that she spends too much time watching TV instead of bonding with her stepson. She also mentions attending some spiritual lectures that resemble a cult. These topics are quite important and interesting to discover, showcasing a person who is lost and unsure of what to do. In her confusion, she seeks solace in nonsensical beliefs like shady cults, preaching that people cannot change their destiny, and similar ideas. However, as you progress the social link, you slowly uncover that both Eri and Yuta genuinely care about each other, but lack the means to bridge that gap. At some point, you learn that Yuta wants to watch a children's TV show, and he is being bullied by other kids actually for not being familiar with it. It turns out that he cannot watch it at home because Eri is always watching TV. You reveal this information, and eventually Eri purchases a Featherman art toy and a DVD for Yuta, marking the beginning of their reconciliation. You also meet Yuta's school teacher, who somewhat bullies Eri, claiming that she isn't doing a good job raising him. This causes Eri to break down in tears. When Yuta witnesses this, he believes that you were the one who upset his stepmom and pushes you, defending her. This incident makes it clear that he also cares for Eri and wants to protect her. In conclusion, Eri and Yuta start spending more time together, and Eri confesses that she was simply avoiding her problems and labeling Yuta as a troublesome child, rather than confronting the issues like an adult. Eri's arcana is Temperance, which symbolizes symbolizes patience, or in the reversed position, the lack thereof. We can clearly observe how Eri at the start desires instant gratification without putting in the effort to repair her relationships with Yuta. Instead of facing the growing problems with stoicism, she retreats into her comfort zone, hoping that the issues will magically resolve themselves over time. Yeah, I can relate to that, and we all know that it never happens. So this behavior reflects her impatience and reluctance to address the challenges directly and lack of patience to protrude the needed positive change. It's actually a touching story that delves into deep themes of loneliness and losing one's way. And despite not having high expectations initially, I actually quite liked it. I would rank it into the B tier. And yeah, guys, I understand that you might be fatigued by the social links, but there are just a few more remaining. And the next one is essentially the final link in the sequence before we can proceed with the story. Now let's talk about the social link involving Ai Ebihara. Initially, she is introduced as the new manager of a sports team, while you progress to the sports club social link. She comes from a wealthy background but behaves like a spoiled brat, frequently skipping classes and indulging in shopping sprees. And if you have enough courage, you can ask her out. At first, she will exploit you as a personal servant to carry her belongings while she shops. And she also reveals that her family was once poor, but her father gained immense wealth through the real estate speculation. And as the story unfolds, you meet your sports club teammates who speak ill of Eri, assuming that she relies on sugar daddies. However, you and Ko can defend her. Eri actually overhears this conversation and of course she's angered, but she also takes interest in Ko or Daisuke if you're in the football team, because they defended her. So she starts requesting that you talk to him about the girl he likes. Ko actually confesses that he has strong feelings for Chie. Eri hears this as well. Distraught, she attempts to jump off a roof, but you manage to reason with her and calm her down. She genuinely cannot comprehend why Ko would choose Chie over her. Well, maybe because Chie is the best girl, but you know, I didn't tell you that. She has put so much effort into her fashion and appearance, assuming that should be enough to make everyone like her, despite actually lacking any redeeming qualities. Out of desperation, she even asks you to start dating her. And if you agree, you will enter a false romance route where she eventually breaks up with you closer to the end of the story. And if you decline her request, she is surprised, but she doesn't try to jump off a roof again. And from that point on, you witness her gradual character development and how she begins to open up to you. So you see, Eri was bullied in school due to her weight, and children would cruelly refer to her as Pigihara. When her family became wealthy, she reinvented herself, shedding the weight and becoming obsessed with fashion, allowing her to start afresh when they moved to Inaba. She realizes that she doesn't need to hide behind a facade and learn to accept herself as she is. At this stage, you can genuinely pursue romantic relationships with her, and her romance route is quite fulfilling actually. Although she still retains some of her arrogance when she's dating you, but I know some of you guys like that piece of tsundere ass, so no judgment. But also she demonstrates care and compassion at the same time, so that's cool. Ai's arcana is the moon, which holds significant symbolism, particularly in its representation of the duality of one's past through the depiction of a dog and a wolf on the tarot card. The dog represents a more civilized and controlled path, while the wolf represents the wild and instinctual side of human nature. So at the beginning of Ai's social link, we can clearly see that she chooses to embrace her wolf side. She exhibits arrogance, anger, and rudeness towards others. The Moon Arcana also symbolizes imagination, which plays a significant role in Ai's journey. She becomes a hostage to her own imaginary world, where she believes that being pretty and wealthy is all that is necessary for people to like her. However, as the social link progresses, we witness a transformation in Ai. She gradually frees herself from the deception and alliance with her true self. She lets go of her illusions and begins to find harmony within herself. I really appreciate when a character who initially seems very unlikable undergoes significant growth during the social link, so I would rank Ai in the A tier. Finally, we can venture into Magatsu Inaba dungeon, which serves as the game's final dungeon, if you can even call it that, because there's like a secret dungeon, final dungeon, and there's like 3 or 4 months more of daily activities and a bunch of achievements. So yeah, this is kind of like a final dungeon, but this is not the end of the game. But before delving deep and pursuing Adachi, we should quickly wrap up Margaret's social link. In reality, it won't take much time, since her social link lacks a significant storyline. It is similar to the Fox's social link, requiring you to fulfill Margaret's assignments and fuse a specific persona with a particular skill. Repeat this process 9 times and you will have maxed out social link in no time. If your level for persona fusions is sufficiently high and you have enough funds to repurchase personas for fusions, you can even complete it in one go. Margaret's arcana is the Empress, which is also associated with the symbolism of motherhood. When approaching this social link from that perspective, it may not be entirely clear at first. However, one way to interpret this is that Margaret assumes a motherly role towards the protagonist. She provides guidance, challenges them with persona fusion tasks, making the protagonist stronger. Furthermore, her social link is crucial to complete during the second playthrough, as failing to do so will prevent you from accessing the super secret final boss required for the achievement. And on a side note, please don't make the same mistake I did and ensure that you register all the personas that are needed for Margaret's quests in the compendium. This way you can easily repurchase them and re-enter the Velvet Room to swiftly max out the social link during your second playthrough. I didn't do this. I forgot to do so, and I had to go through the persona fusions all over again, almost for every rank, and it takes like maybe an hour or so. Finally, we enter Adachi's dungeon and confront him as the final boss. His first phase is actually pretty manageable. He uses Heat Razor in the very beginning, and you can easily counter that with Debilitate, and basically that's it. You just can keep him debuffed all the time, and he doesn't really pose a lot of threat. Once we defeat him, he undergoes a transformation, assuming his second form known as Ameno Sagiri. This entity represents the god of fog and is truly responsible for the fog's existence and the emergence of the TV world. Ameno Sagiri is actually pretty easy as well. I don't know, I remember beating him on my first try during the first playthrough, and right now I'm very overleveled here, but still, like, he doesn't pose a lot of threat. He can do this kind of like hide in the fog kind of thing, and you won't be able to damage him a lot. But still, during that time you can use items, you can buff your team, you can guard, so everything is fine, like it's not a big threat, and before you know it, it will be down. So after we defeat Ameno Sagiri, it actually acknowledges that it has heard the desires of the people and promises to make the fog dissipate. So the entire concept behind the fog is that Ameno Sagiri presents itself as the bestower of humanity's wishes. It believes that by enveloping the town in fog and transforming people into shadows, it is fulfilling mankind's desires. According to its perspective, people yearn to escape the hardships of their daily lives and willingly embrace a state of oblivion, drifting through the internal fog, blissfully ignorant of the underlying reality. And well, I suppose it's okay. To be honest, I found it acceptable, but this is so-called plot twist seems like a parody of the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games. I mean, in the mainline Shin Megami Tensei, the plot twists are much more mind-bending. But nevertheless, we have what we have, and I can't deny that I actually quite enjoyed it. And with that accomplished, we obtain one of the endgame achievements titled Breaking Through the Fog. And after the vanilla game concludes, the golden part begins. However, before we delve into that, we must complete the quiz. So, you see, in Persona 4 Golden there is a separate game mode that allows you to participate in a Jeopardy-like quiz hosted by Teddy. You compete against your teammates and answer a range of questions related to the story and gameplay of Persona 4. These are actually quite enjoyable, but also can be very challenging. The questions vary in difficulty, ranging from simple ones like which skill inflicts poison, to more obscure ones like how many chairs are there in your classroom, or what color is Shadow Risei's striptease pole during the fight. There are a considerable number of questions, but they tend to repeat, so through trial and error you will eventually be able to succeed in all of the rounds. While there are online resources available with lists of questions and correct answers, I found them difficult to utilize since you are giving only 5 seconds to answer and pausing the game is not possible. Moreover, it's more enjoyable to tackle the quiz on your own and truly test your knowledge of various gameplay and story aspects. And overall, we are aiming for this achievement now because we need to win 3 times, corresponding to the 3 rounds: prelims, semifinals and grand finals. The grand finals become accessible immediately after defeating Adachi and Ameno Sagiri, allowing us to complete it in one go. So after approximately maybe 40 minutes of trial and error, I successfully conquered the finals, earning us a new Quiz King achievement. In the end, I have found it much easier to get as many points, maybe 5 to 8 in the early rounds, and then just let other participants answer. They won't be able to get as many points, plus they will occasionally answer incorrectly and lose a point. So if you have maybe 5 or 6 points and everyone else have maybe 0, just let them play and enjoy the humor. And actually, after completing the quiz, there's not a lot we can do in terms of daily life. Margaret contacts us and says that Mary has left the Velvet Room and is nowhere to be found. If we accept Margaret's help, she will tell you that she will try to find her eventually, but it will take some time. And you know what that means? Of course, more social links to max out. And from here we come to the Sun Arcana, which is represented by 2 characters depending on the chosen club. In my first playthrough, I joined the Drama Club, which led me to Yumi Ozawa's story. If you decide to join the Music Club, then Ayane Matsunaga becomes the focus. I'll primarily discuss Yumi's narrative as it is more detailed. So Yumi is a member of the Drama Club, and it becomes evident right away that she is one of the most talented members. Her enthusiasm and determination are very much seen as she outperforms another member vying for the lead role in a play. And as the social link progresses, a dramatic event unfolds when Yumi receives news that her mother is in the hospital. However, upon arrival, it is revealed that it's actually her father who is hospitalized. And the thing is that Yumi's father had left the family for another woman, leading Yumi to harbor deep resentment for him. Now, with her father on the deathbed and abandoned by his new family, he reaches out to Yumi's mother. This situation infuriates Yumi, causing her to refuse to visit him. Throughout the social link, Yumi starts skipping the drama club to be with her father at the hospital. She takes on the role of caring for him when her mother collapses from exhaustion, providing her with much needed rest. Over time, Yumi becomes more open with her father, despite her lingering anger. As the social link nears its end, her father actually passes away in the hospital. But before his passing, he encourages Yumi and shares the story of how her parents chose her name. Combining Yumi, meaning to bear a fruit, with her family name Ozawa, meaning a small swamp, suggests the desire for Yumi to thrive and find happiness in any circumstances. Following her father's death, Yumi experiences grief, but also comes to realization that he wasn't solely a bad man, acknowledging that people make mistakes and there are reasons behind their actions. She gradually loses interest for acting and ultimately decides to quit the drama club. She no longer needs it as an outlet for her negative emotions. In the end, Yumi expresses her desire to explore various clubs and sees all available opportunities. For me, Yumi's story is a dramatic and a dark tale with an unexpected ending, deserving of its place in the A tier. Ayane, on the other hand, has a contrasting character and story. Unlike Yumi, she struggles with her instrument, the trumpet, and mostly handles paperwork and event organization for the music club. Ayane is small, shy, and often mistaken for a younger student. At one point in the social link, the main trumpet player gets injured, leading Ayane to be chosen as his replacement. With your help and guidance during the practice, she gradually improves and even secures a spot in the band's upcoming performance. However, just before the performance, the original trumpet player returns, and Ayane willingly steps aside without any insistence from others. Feeling regretful about her decision, Ayane becomes angry with herself and resolves to be more assertive and self-confident. She overcomes her shyness, practices diligently, and eventually becomes proficient with the trumpet. And of course, both Ayane and Yumi has the Sun Arcana. In its upright position, it means optimism, vitality, joy, and confidence. While in the reverse position, it means blocked happiness, excessive enthusiasm, pessimism, unrealistic expectations, and conceitedness. So all these aspects are represented in both stories, and to be honest, it's quite interesting to see how these polar characters, polar opposites, represent the same arcana and can reveal different aspects of it. But of course, Ayane's story is not as detailed and dramatic as Yumi's. It is still a relatable and enjoyable narrative, deserving of its place in the B tier. And from this point, our schedule becomes less busy, allowing us more free time to focus on various activities. One such activity I recommend is working on registering 100 skill cards in the Velvet Room. Naturally, by the end of the game, you will have acquired around 30 to 50 skill cards without actively pursuing them. Of course, if you want to aim to reach as many skill cards as possible during your first playthrough, I suggest selecting the skill card option during the shuffle, which are the swords cards, as they can grant you unique cards that you cannot get from the personas. To make the most of our free time, we begin visiting the Chagall Cafe in Okina City. Whenever you order a coffee there, the persona in your primary slot will offer its skill card to you, provided you have acquired the specific skill, of course. Each each persona has a different skill card it can pass on. So, to increase our collection, we can purchase multiple low-level personas and visit the cafe every day to acquire more skill cards. I will provide more detailed information about this activity later, as we only have a few weeks of free time remaining until the end of the game. However, during our second playthrough, we will have more ample opportunities to visit the cafe and complete the achievement. And by drinking coffee at the Chagall Cafe for the first time, we also unlock the Acquired Taste achievement. Every day until you like it. Okay, and now we're delving into maxing out another double social link, which involves Daisuke and Ko from the sports clubs. In my first playthrough, I chose the football club, leading me to Daisuke's social link, so let's start with that. Upon joining the football club, we quickly become an outcast among the team, and we are forced to clean up after everyone has gone home. The only friendly person is Daisuke, who helps us with the cleaning. We also meet Ko, Daisuke's childhood friend, who is a member of a basketball team. Initially, not much happens in the social link until around rank 6 or 7. We train hard with Daisuke and Ko, eventually winning a game against another school, with the protagonist scoring a goal. This impresses the team members and they fully accept us as part of the team. Throughout the story, we encounter hints and foreshadowing. There are girls constantly trying to ask Daisuke out, but he brushes them off, claiming that girls are pain in the ass. At a certain point, we realize that Daisuke is not putting in his best effort during training and is reluctant to share what is bothering him. Ko takes us out to a restaurant and explains that Daisuke was dumped by his girlfriend, causing him to fear getting hurt again. We decide to help by setting up a blind date for the three of us with the three girls from Okina City. When we bring Daisuke to the date, he becomes angry and leaves immediately. On our way back, Daisuke and Ko have a quarrel, during which we convince Daisuke that his problems are also our problems because we are friends. Through these conflicts, Daisuke realizes that he needs to overcome his fear. He gains closure by speaking to his ex-girlfriend and expresses gratitude to Ko and us for our support. Although he is disappointed to learn that his ex-girlfriend already has a new boyfriend, he is still happy to have resolved the issue. And if you choose to join the basketball club, we will still interact with both Ko and Daisuke, but the focus will be on Ko this time. Ko's story revolves around the fact that he comes from a distinguished and traditional family, but there is a twist. He is adopted. His parents were unable to conceive a child, so they adopted Ko from an orphanage to secure an heir. After adopting Ko, his parents were actually blessed with a biological child, a little girl, which resulted in Ko no longer being the heir. Surprisingly, Ko is not too bothered by this. In fact, he feels relieved that he can now pursue his own path without the pressure of being an heir of a big family. However, his grandmother, who heads the family at the moment, views basketball as barbaric. And despite the fact that nobody really prohibits Ko to do basketball, but he still feels alienated from his family. Ko eventually loses interest in basketball and starts skipping practice. When he does participate, Ko is shown to be absent-minded, unaware that the practice has already ended. Worried about Ko, Daisuke proposes a plan to reignite Ko's passion for basketball by blackmailing other team members into having a match. And of course, Daisuke invites Ko to join the match. But actually, Ko and protagonist's team lose the match, and Ko actually feels relieved and expresses gratitude to Daisuke and us. As his interest in basketball returns and Ko realizes that now his mask is gone, he decides to search for his true parents. He contacts the orphanage and actually receives a letter that appears to be from his real parents. The letter reveals that his real parents passed away from illness long time ago. And in the letter it is also revealed that the name Ko means healthy, and that's what his parents basically wanted for him to have a strong and healthy body. After reading the letter, Ko laments that he expected such an outcome. However, he also notices that the letter's signature is hastily smudged, leading him to suspect that it may not have been written by his real parents, but by the orphanage's principal. Despite this, Ko realizes that he doesn't necessarily need to discover his true identity. He acknowledges that his bonds with others define him as the person he is today. This realization brings him relief, and he expresses gratitude to the protagonist and Daisuke. By the end of the social link, Ko reveals that he asked his foster parents if they truly cared for him or merely saw him as a substitute. And to his surprise, his parents assure him that they genuinely care for him as their son and believe he should pursue his own desires. And Ko decides to study abroad after graduating instead of pursuing basketball, as he feels the need to contribute to his family anyway. So, both Daisuke and Ko share the Strength Arcana, which in its reverse position symbolizes self-doubt, weakness and low confidence. We can clearly see these traits in the beginning of their respective storylines. However, as they reach their personal revelations, it becomes evident that they have gained the confidence and inner strength associated with the Strength Arcana in its upright position. And both stories are actually quite solid and deserve a place in the B tier in my opinion. And here we are, at the final social link before we advance the storyline again. So enter Naoki, the younger brother of Saki Konishi. And if you remember, Saki is a girl who worked at Junes with Yosuke and sadly became the second victim of the Inaba killer. Now, when we first meet Naoki, he doesn't exactly have the warmest reception for our protagonist and Yosuke. In fact, he straight up admits that he hates both of us. But of course, Naoki has been carrying a heavy burden, silently grieving the loss of his sister. He is unable to move on from the tragic event, and to make matters worse, everyone at school pities him, giving him special treatment and excusing his tardiness and lack of participation due to the sensitivity surrounding his loss. The rumors circulating about Saki working at Junes only worsen the situation, and Naoki has become numb to it all. However, a glimmer of hope emerges when he strikes up an honest conversation with our protagonist, the first person to talk to him without pity. And actually throughout the social link, Naoki gradually opens up to us and speaks a lot about his relationships with his sister. He fondly recalls how she would devour the cream puffs he bought, defending herself by saying that they were about to expire anyway. But the first sign that Saki was truly gone came to Naoki when he found an expired cream puff he had bought in the fridge. Naoki struggles to express his sadness, feeling abnormal for not crying or grieving in the same way he sees on television. But then something transformative happens, and Naoki musters the courage to visit the location where Saki's body was found, a place he has been avoiding. And there, finally, he releases months of torment and suffering as he mourns his fallen sister and accepts her death. There's also a heartwarming event when Naoki actually visits Junes and encounters Yosuke. Despite Naoki's initial distrust, they engage in a meaningful conversation. Yosuke shares that Saki always said she was proud of Naoki, and he reassures Naoki that he too cared for Saki and understands his grief. Ah, Yosuke, my man, you're such a cool guy. And after that, Naoki reveals that he feels ready to move forward and work towards reuniting his family again. So Naoki's arcana is the Hanged Man, symbolizing sacrifice. It was a bit challenging for me to fully grasp its meaning, but according to tarot lore, the Hanged Man is voluntarily positioned that way, signifying that he is a martyr, actually. We can see how Naoki accepts that he is essentially being sacrificed for others to pity and find solace. In the reversed position, the Hanged Man arcana represents a needless sacrifice, or a period of sacrificing energy and time without feeling any return. This resonates with Naoki when he expresses that he feels like he doesn't exist. In the upright position, this arcana signifies the need to step back and carefully plan actions in order to achieve results. We witness this in Naoki's prolonged contemplation, finally reaching an understanding and deciding to try and reunite his family once more. The story of Naoki's social link is truly touching, and I appreciate the closure it provides. Additionally, I believe Naoki would have been a delightful addition to the investigation team and could have easily had his own dungeon. So for its depth and attention to detail, I place Naoki's social link in the A tier. Finally, we're back in action and it's about time to take on the Reaper. We need to enter the Midnight Channel to grind for some quest items anyway, and I realized that with the extra XP, our team is currently around level 80 or 90, which should give us a good chance against the Reaper. The interesting thing about Persona 4 is that killing the Reaper is actually not an easy task. I mean, the actual battle itself is not too difficult, but the challenge lies in finding the Reaper in the first place. It's not as straightforward as waiting on a specific floor until it appears like in Persona 5, and there's no special death card during the shuffle that summons him instantly like in Persona 3. So here's the deal, in order to encounter the Reaper in Persona 4, you need to open roughly 21 treasure chests. After doing so, you will start hearing chains rattling in the distance, indicating that the Reaper is lurking somewhere. However, to actually encounter him, you need to open another chest, and it should be a trap chest that contains an enemy. If your 22nd chest contains an enemy, it will be replaced by the Reaper. You will receive a warning from Risette and your teammates before opening it. Now, you may wonder how to know if the next chest contains an enemy. The simple answer is, there is no way to know for sure. And to make things worse, if your 22nd chest does not contain an enemy, the Reaper counter will reset, and you'll have to do it all over again, opening 21 chests and so on and so forth. Honestly, I have no idea why they made this such a tedious task. It worked well in Persona 3 with the occasional death card, but in Persona 4 it's just a pain in the ass. Basically, I've encountered the Reaper before, but only once, and I didn't fight it. It was around the time of Kanji's or Mitsuo dungeon, so the team was pretty low level. So basically I have encountered the Reaper naturally only once in like 70 hours. But of course, there is a way to partially alleviate the grind by going into Yukiko's dungeon. You see, if you open 20 chests and then exit the dungeon and save, the counter will not reset. Furthermore, if you go to level 5 of Yukiko's castle, you will notice that the layout is always the same and there are exactly 2 normal chests with a high chance of containing a shadow there. So, once you have accumulated 20 chests, head to level 5 of Yukiko's castle and open both chests there. If the Reaper doesn't appear, simply load the game and try again. And by the way, the easiest way to accumulate 20 chests is to enter level 1 of Yukiko's castle and open the 4 chests there 5 times. And so after following this method, we finally encountered the Reaper and easily defeated with some buffed up Housou Tobis. And with that being done, we obtained the achievement called The Reaper Becomes the Reaped. And also received the Blade of Totsuka, the ultimate weapon of our protagonist. And around the same time we also received the Cooking with Gas achievement for preparing 5 perfect lunches. You can always prepare the lunch in the evening when Nanako informs you that she went shopping and the fridge is full. To prepare the perfect lunch, you need to choose the correct answer on how to cook the food. Unless you've seen all seasons of MasterChef, there is no way to know for sure which option to select. So, to be honest, I don't think there is any shame in looking for a guide. And actually it's interesting to note that there are around 20 different lunch options in the game, which is surprisingly large number considering this activity can be entirely skipped during your playthrough. Gotta cater to that foodie audience, right? Anyway, after we prepare our 5th perfect lunch, we finally receive the achievement called Cooking with Gas. So, after our daily lives resume, Margaret occasionally calls us, still searching for Mary, but unfortunately without success for now. With winter upon us, Yosuke suggests that the whole team should go on a ski trip to the nearest resort. We embark on this chilly adventure and have a series of funny events, including everyone skiing and sharing spooky stories in the cozy lounge at night. However, things take an unexpected turn on the second day. Our protagonist gets caught in a snowstorm with one of the team members, and while wandering through the snowy fields, we stumble upon an abandoned snack. Snack? Oh my god. Abandoned shack, of course. To our surprise, the rest of the team catches up and we discover an old TV inside the shack. Suddenly it starts working and reveals the Midnight Channel, which should have disappeared after Amenosagiri's defeat. With hopes of finding help or a way out of the storm, the team decides to enter the TV world once again. But upon entering the TV world, we end up in the mysterious Hollow Forest. And to make matters more intriguing, we also encounter Margaret, who informs us that this is where Mary is hiding and that it is our duty to assist her. The Hollow Forest proves to be a unique dungeon unlike any we've encountered before. Firstly, we are stripped of all our items and equipment. We also must find chests within the dungeon to acquire new weapons and gear to improve our chances of facing the final boss. Furthermore, each party member's SP is halved after each battle if they have participated in the fight. Luckily, special equipment within the dungeon can be discovered to restore SP and provide other beneficial effects. And of course, this dungeon may sound challenging, but it's not as daunting as it seems. You can still use go-homes to return to the entrance and rely on the trusty fox to recover SP, which comes in particularly handy right before the final boss. Each section of the dungeon is referred to as memory rather than floors, symbolizing Mary's subconscious desire to remain in the real world. These memories include memories of parting, pain, grief, sorrow, love, suffering, anger, loneliness, invitation, and meeting. Interestingly, fragments of the real world, such as benches and Juness signs, leak into this reality for some reason. Upon reaching the 10th memory, we encounter Mary, who reveals her true identity as Kusumi no Okami, a goddess whose sole purpose was to perpetuate the cycle of fog that engulfs Inaba. With Kuni and Amenosagiri gone, Mary believes that she must sacrifice herself by absorbing Inaba's fog. But of course, our team refuses to let her go so easily. They call upon the feelings and memories they have shared with Mary, declaring that they won't allow her to meet such a tragic fate, and so the battle commences. The fight begins with Mary in her new form, serving as a prelude similar to the battles with Shadow Rise and Shadow Teddy. Once we overcome her initial phase, Mary transforms into her true form, triggering the real challenge. During the fight, we quickly realize that Kusumi is immune to all regular damage. The only way to harm her is by using break spells, which many of us have replaced with more useful spells over time, of course, or by utilizing breaker items scattered throughout the dungeon. Fortunately, there are plenty of chests in the dungeon, so chances are you'll have at least few breaker items of each element. But I really recommend taking a little extra time on the last floors to grind and collect at least 5 breaker items for each element. After that, Kusumi is actually quite vulnerable to magic attacks, especially if you have Yukiko's ultimate persona. Her burning petal skill can prove invaluable in this battle, provided you have enough firebreakers at your disposal. So after defeating Kusumi, we finally free Inaba from the clutches of fog forever. And anyway, Mary gains a bond with the real world, allowing her to exist there permanently. Following some additional cutscenes, we find ourselves back in the shack, earning the well-deserved Welcome Back achievement along the way. And of course, the game isn't over just yet. Believe it or not, we still have a few more weeks of free time ahead. Since we have completed all the necessary tasks and achieved the majority of the achievements by now, our focus now is on attending school and spending our free time in Chagall Cafe to acquire more skill cards. Finally, after some time, the game skips ahead a few weeks and we find ourselves on our last day in Inaba, the day of departure. During this sequence, we are tasked with speaking to all the characters whose social links we have maxed out, which means we need to talk to literally everybody in the town. But there is still one social link that hasn't reached its maximum level, and that's with Adachi. But how can we possibly complete it when he's in jail? Well, let's start from the very beginning. Adachi's social link initially starts as the Jester, and we've previously discussed how it transforms into the Hunger Arcana in the end of the game. We first encounter Adachi at Junes slacking off from work and strike up a conversation. Throughout the social link, we learn that Adachi is incredibly bored with his job. He used to work in the city, but was dismissed after an incident that is never fully explained. As a result, he was transferred to the small town of Inaba, where most of his work involved mundane tasks like searching for lost cats and resolving domestic disputes. And of course, spoilers that Adachi is the killer is harder to avoid than spoilers of Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. So considering that we already know that Adachi is the killer, I couldn't help but feel a sinister undertone in every bit of dialogue from him. At some point he speaks about the girls that he likes and mentions that he could settle for anyone who can cook. A somewhat off-putting remark, wouldn't you agree? Furthermore, he's constantly evading a sweet old granny who seems to have taken a liking to him. She persistently tries to bring him food, yet he badmouths her behind her back, claiming her cooking isn't that tasty and that she's too noisy and talkative. And throughout the social link we gather bits and pieces of Adachi's past, but nothing too serious or dramatic. And actually that's the eerie thing about him. Despite this being a social link, where we typically get to know people and their stories, we don't really learn much about Adachi. There's some dialogue about his past and a few events involving him and Nanako where he actually acts like a decent human being, but beyond that, not much more. After rank 6, the social link progresses automatically until we reach the point after the events in Heaven. At this juncture, the path diverges again. We can choose to pursue the Jester link or allow it to transform into the Hunger Arcana, leading to the good or true ending. If you decide to follow the Jester path, you'll eventually end up with the Accomplice ending, an addition introduced in Persona 4 Golden. In this route, you can actually confront Adachi, but it occurs much later, on your final day in Inaba. He denies any involvement with the killing, but you can tell him that you're on his side, and eventually he asks you to burn a threatening letter that arrived at your house during the main story. This letter serves as an incriminating evidence that exposes Adachi as the real killer, and by burning it, you are basically aligning yourself with the main villain. Of course, I didn't personally pursue this ending since it's not required for any achievements, but I have watched others do it and it sends shivers down my spine. The atmosphere surrounding it, the realization that you're doing something so morally wrong, it's almost physically discomforting. We have previously discussed the meaning behind the Jester and Hunger Arcana, but I believe that by fully mastering the potential of the Jester Arcana and reaching rank 10 with it, the protagonist basically becomes the Jester himself, embodying the twisted and malevolent fool, both figuratively and literally. If you haven't experienced this ending, I really urge you to watch it. It truly gave me chills, especially when in the final cutscene you realize that your teammates have seemingly accepted the fact that the mystery of the Inaba killer will never be resolved, and also everyone have grown accustomed to the fog blanketing the city every day. Even Dojima mentions that something feels off, although he can't quite pinpoint what. It is incredibly eerie, and I'm amazed that the developers included this ending in the game. But of course, since we are the heroes of the story, we eventually confront Adachi in the TV world after identifying him as the main culprit. He lashes out at us, transforming into Hunger, we apprehend him, and he's taken into custody. But what happens happens next? So let's get back to our last day, and after speaking to everybody, we have the option to head straight to the train station or enter June's court one last time to meet up with the team. During this meeting, we remember that Nanako gave us a letter from someone and we decide to read it. To our surprise, the letter is from Adachi himself. He laments that there's something more to this whole situation and suspects that both he and Namatame were merely pawns in someone else's game. The team stands behind this claim, and together we resolve to search for one last clue and truly untangle this web of lies, or should I say clear the fog of falsehood. And of course, by obtaining Adachi's letter and maxing out the last social link in the game, we not only pave our way to the true ending, but also achieve the prestigious Legend of Inaba achievement for completing all 22 social links in a single playthrough. Whew, what a wild ride it has been, but I must say I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. Of course, there were ups and downs in the various social link stories, but overall it's an incredible way to experience the Persona narrative and appreciate the attention to detail and thoughtfulness that went into creating this game. Adachi's social link in particular stands out as one of the best for me. I appreciate the sinister undertones, the unique ending crafted specifically for him, and of course the beautiful way it all comes together in the end. It's definitely an S tier. And actually Adachi himself is an exceptional villain in my opinion, a pitiful and worthless individual who through sheer happenstance is granted immense power. So as we delve deeper into the mystery and search for that one last clue, the pieces start falling into place. It becomes clear that both protagonist Adachi and Namatame received their abilities right after their arrival in Inaba, specifically on the very first day. If you reflect on it, you might recall the gas station attendant who shook your hand, and yes, that very person is the main villain. Confronting the attendant and applying a little pressure, he reveals his true identity as Izanami herself, the mastermind behind the fog phenomenon, the mother or grandmother, well, it's rather convoluted there, of the Sagiri entities, and basically the whole world. Yeah guys, that's actually nice plot twist, and everything falls into place. It's Iza fucking Nami, that's awesome. With her true identity unveiled, Izanami promptly disappears. As we venture into the TV world again, a new dungeon opens up before us, Yomotsu Hirasaka. And thus our journey to face the ultimate final boss begins. Get ready for the epic showdown. And I know I hyped it up a lot, but before we dive deep into the dungeon, it's always a wise idea to spend a couple of hours fusing personas to complete our compendium to 100%. Now, of course, nobody expects you to do this blindly because there's a lot of fusions you have to do. Thankfully, there are many convenient fusion calculators available online. I'll include a link in the video description. It can be a bit time-consuming and somewhat convoluted, especially considering there are a few special fusion personas that aren't listed in the standard fusion sections. So just in case, keep a close eye out for personas like Alice, Norn, and Ardha. Basically, these personas are special double and triple fusions that aren't listed anywhere, so just make sure you remember that. And of course, be prepared to part ways with a significant chunk of your in-game currency. I had around 4 million yen, and I believe I spent maybe 2.5 to 3 million on all the fusions. But of course, once we reach glorious 100% and fuse the final required persona, we unlock the thorough Bookkeeper achievement. And also Margaret will give us a special item that will give us 25% discount on repurchasing personas in the future. It's actually quite nice in the second playthrough. And actually we still have one more persona to unlock, but it will be available only in New Game Plus. And fortunately it is not needed for completing the compendium. Okay, so finally it's time to dive deep into Yomotsu Hirasaka, the grand final of the game. And this dungeon may not have any fancy gimmicks, all we need to do is progress through the floors and defeat the occasional mid-bosses. But let me tell you, this dungeon is absolutely stunning. It's easily one of my favorites. And just to give you some context, Yomotsu Hirasaka is a concept rooted in Japanese mythology and folklore. It represents the steep slope that leads to the underworld or land of the dead, known as Yomi or Yomotsu no Kuni. Yomotsu Hirasaka is the place where Izanagi, who happens to be our persona and the godfather of the whole world in Japanese folklore, went to retrieve his deceased wife, Izanami, So in a way, we are recreating the story according to the myth. So once we reach Izanami, she reveals that the Midnight Channel was merely a window into people's desires. It taps into our natural curiosity to uncover the secrets and compare ourselves to others, creating an everlasting anxiety within us. In essence, Izanami, as well as Sagiris and Kusumi no Okami, granted people what they wanted. However, Izanami praises our unwavering determination and desire to uncover the ultimate truth. So we challenge her to battle in order to put an end to the folk curse of Inaba once and for all. And it's really like that for now. It's no additional super secret bosses. It's the true ending, I promise. The first phase of the fight against Izanami is your typical boss encounter. She packs a punch with elemental attacks and occasionally hits us with Megidolaon, but nothing too overwhelming. And once we defeat her, she reveals her true form, Izanami no Okami, resembling her decaying self after Izanagi found her in Yumi. This battle is a bit more challenging as she gets 2 attacks per turn and unleashes powerful moves like Kuro Ikazuchi and Fury of Yasogami. But of course we push through, and when Izanagi senses her impending defeat, she resorts to using 1000 curses. This ability drags our teammates into Yomi one by one, and eventually she tries to ensnare the protagonist as well. Suddenly, we find ourselves in the same fog-shrouded reality we encountered at the very beginning of the game. Margaret appears and reminds us that it's not the time to give up, and then we witness a procession of all the characters whose social links we have maxed out, rallying behind us. This empowers protagonists to break free from Yomi and return to the battlefield. With the power of friendship and love, Izanagi evolves into Izanagi no Okami, and we unleash our ultimate attack, Myriad Truth. With that attack, we finally defeat Izanami. And with that, we receive the last story-related trophy in the game. The truth is in your hands. And of course, following that, we are treated to a series of heartfelt cutscenes, and no matter how many times I rewatch them, they always manage to bring a single manly tear to my eye. And there you have it, my friends. We have completed Persona 4 Golden to the best of our abilities. But as the saying goes, we won the battle, but we've yet to win the war. So after completing the game, we can immediately start the New Game Plus. In this playthrough, we'll focus solely on the remaining achievements and necessary tasks for securing the Platinum Trophy. So basically, here's what we need to do. So with those objectives in mind, we quickly skim through the story and complete the initial dungeons until we obtain our scooter license. From this point onward, we can visit Okina City again, and it's actually all about spending our time at Chagall Cafe. I wonder if it's even legal to drink that much coffee, especially when it makes you pass out after every cup. But hey, it's all for the sake of the progress, and it kinda aligns to the amount of coffee I drank while playing this game. Now, registering 100 skill cards can be quite the grind. To keep track of my progress, I created a small spreadsheet, which I'll share in the video description as well for your convenience. So like and subscribe. When I started grinding, I had around maybe 40 to 50 skill cards already. It took some time, of course, to gather the remaining 50, and I began by using cheap personas to acquire their skill cards at the Chagall Cafe. During the shuffle times, I also prioritized choosing sword cards, as sometimes they would yield a card that I hadn't obtained yet, or sometimes it even can give you a card that you cannot obtain through Chagall Cafe. You actually can always visit the Velvet Room to see how many cards Mary is selling. This number corresponds to the number of cards you have already registered. By marking these cards in the spreadsheet, you can easily identify the ones you're still missing. So once you have the required number of new skill cards, you can register them all with Mary at once, earning you the Card Collector achievement. And from here we come to the most frustrating achievement in the game, the dreaded hardcore Risette Fan. This achievement requires you to hear 250 different phrases from Rise during battles. While it may sound relatively straightforward since Rise commands on everything that happens in every fight, well, let me tell you, it's an incredibly tedious grind. It's important to be cautious because certain phrases are tied to specific conditions, like being underleveled. If you overlevel at any point, those phrases will be locked. I learned this the hard way and started creating my own spreadsheet to track the phrases I had heard and the ones I still need to find. And actually I had my spreadsheet done maybe 60 to 70%, and I also wanted to share it with you guys, but To my surprise, I discovered a much more comprehensive and professionally made spreadsheet on guides in Steam, so I will share that instead. It's very good. Nevertheless, here are some key tips for this achievement. Keep your level very low for the most of the game. In New Game Plus, you can easily summon powerful personas like Yoshitsune in the very beginning of the game and breeze through all the battles. Adjust the difficulty to deal and receive less damage, prolonging battles and making it easier to hunt for certain status elements. Start grinding around the time you reach Magatsu Inaba. The endgame dungeons have enemies with area of effect element spells, making it more convenient to hunt for those phrases. And you have to utilize all the characters at some point. Once you've heard most phrases with characters like Yosuke, Yukiko and Chie, switch to Teddy, Kanji and Naoto to grind for the specific elements with them. And actually that's about all I can offer. Beyond these tips, it's simply a grueling grind, and I hope you have the patience and determination to obtain this achievement. It took me around a week of grinding for 2-3 hours each day, so well, brace yourself for the challenge ahead and good luck. And finally, the moment arrived when I heard the last phrase I needed to unlock the achievement.
Yukiko-senpai scared.
I have to say, this memory will probably stay with me for the rest of my life. And now we also progress towards the true ending road of New Game Plus, and there are a couple of important steps to take. First, we have the option to decline Margaret's offer to search for Mary. It may feel a bit wrong, but trust me, we are not going through that dungeon again. This choice allows us to move straight to Yomotsu Hirasaka, the final dungeon. And on the last day before the final showdown, we have the opportunity to speak with Igor and Margaret in the Velvet Room. Providing we completed all the optional bosses and maxed out Margaret's social link, Margaret will request that we meet her on the last floor of Heaven's dungeon. And of course this is the crucial trigger, as it paves the way for a secret battle against none other than Margaret herself. But of course, before entering the TV world, once again we make a quick visit to the Velvet Room. Here we can create Izanagi no Okami, the persona we used to defeat Izanami in our final battle last time. This particular persona is exclusive to New Game Plus and requires a new
Dodecahedron.
The fusion of Izanagi no Okami marks an achievement in itself, granting us the Power of Thruth. And now we come to the final trophy before achieving the platinum. The last challenge is defeating Margaret, the secret boss of the game. So, there's no turning back now. But honestly, I have a confession to make. The grind for the hardcore Risette Fan trophy left me mentally and physically exhausted. So by the time I reached Margaret, I had no strength left to grind for hours to level up my team and face her head on. So I did something I'm not really proud of. I cheated and used infinite revives through the difficulty setting menu to cheese the battle. And actually, even with the cheats enabled, it still took me about an hour to defeat her. But I really felt empty. I didn't feel accomplished for obtaining this achievement and the platinum trophy through cheating. So I made a decision. I took a break, gathered my willpower and prepared to go back into the TV world to face Margaret once again. This time there will be no cheats and I would tackle her on hard difficulty. Because after putting so much effort into this game and video, I couldn't just stop here. Sure, I could have cheated again, edited the video to make it seem like I defeated her fair and square, but that would mean ignoring the character growth and amazing social link we experienced throughout the game. It would mean not learning any lessons. So yes, I may have cheated or cheesed games for trophies in the past, but not this time, and not anymore. Consider this my personal social link with the game and with you, the viewer. It's a bond that cannot go unmaxed, right? So after taking a break, I loaded up my latest save and delved into a grind session. My first stop was Magatsu Mandala, where I aimed to encounter some golden hands and quickly get my team to level 99. For my team, I decided to go with a bit of unconventional lineup of Chie, Naoto and Teddy. So So yeah, Naoto and Teddy may not be the typical choices, but they are the ones for whom I had acquired the ultimate persona. For some reason I completely neglected Yukiko and Kanji in this playthrough, so they are stuck with their initial personas. And with the leveling done, it was time to move on to the next phase, which is grinding the Reaper. I previously explained the strategy for taking down the Reaper, but in practice it wasn't as daunting as it seemed. On average, I managed to defeat one Reaper every 10 or 15 minutes, and I needed a total of 8 Reapers. You see, the first Reaper drop grants the Blade of Totsuka, which is the ultimate weapon for the protagonist. The subsequent 3 Reapers will drop ultimate weapons for each member of my active party. And I have to say, these weapons are very good. Once everyone in the party has obtained their ultimate weapon, the Reaper will start dropping godly robes. And these are the best armor in the game, and it actually provides a remarkable +10 boost to all stats. And after obtaining 4 godly robes and the ultimate weapons for each member of my party, I was ready to take on Margaret for real. Or so I thought. As I stepped onto the last floor of heaven, I was met with immense disappointment, because Margaret was nowhere to be found. It turned out that in my eagerness to progress, I had mistakenly loaded a save file where I had already defeated her. So with the face of Pepe the Frog, I had no choice but to revert to the previous save, check for Margaret's presence now, and start everything from scratch. It actually took me another day, but thankfully, since I had become a pro at grinding Reapers by that point, it went a bit faster. In fact, it felt like the Reaper battles themselves took less time than grinding for golden hands. So I've gathered the ultimate weapons, armor, and leveled up everyone to level 99 once again, and now we're fully prepared to take on Margaret in a thrilling battle on a very hard difficulty. And let me tell you, it was quite the ride. So let's dive deep into the fight and break it down for you in all the glory. So Margaret, being the sneaky boss she is, gets not 1 but 2 actions per turn. The fight can be split into 3 phases, each with its own twists and surprises. And also, here's the cool part, Margaret switches personas as well as the protagonist, and it's actually altering her weaknesses and resistances. So it's absolutely crucial to keep an eye on her status screen throughout the battle. And I have to say, I gotta love those gimmicks. So phase 1 is all about Margaret exploiting our team's weaknesses. If she succeeds, she'll get another turn and will also use a devastating AoE attack. And oh, on every 3rd turn, she buffs herself with Mind Charge and unleashes Megiddo on the whole gang. With our ultimate weapons and the godly robes, it's actually no biggie, unless she lucks out and gets multiple extra turns. Thankfully, my team was nimble enough to dodge her elemental onslaught most of the times. When we bring herself down to around 50% HP, she throws a Morning Star at us and also heals herself with Diarahan. From there, it's phase 2, which isn't actually much different from phase 1. Basically, the only change is that she won't heal again and will swiftly transition to phase 3. Now, phase 3 is where things get really scary. Instead of Mind Charge Megidolaon, Margaret brings out her trump card, the Power Charged Hasou Tobi. And of course, you know that I was using Hasou Tobis throughout the whole game, so this move is a game changer, capable of wiping out the entire team really fast. Lucky for us, the protagonist also has Yoshitsune, so he's immune to physical damage. So we bravely take on the first Hasou Tobi head-on, and thanks to the Endure Social Link skill, everyone survives. For the subsequent Hasou Tobis, I have Naoto's Shield of Justice ready to counter the attack. And finally, after a few more intense turns, we emerge victorious, defeating Margaret once and for all. As a reward, she grants us the Spiral bookmark and reveals some intriguing lore that ties Persona 3 and 4 together. And with that, I can proudly claim the one who has proven their power achievement, and also unlock the Platinum trophy, completing our incredible journey in Persona 4 Golden. Wow, what a journey it has been. I hope you found this video as thrilling and entertaining as I did playing through Persona 4 Golden. Creating this video was a labor of love, and I sincerely appreciate your support, guys. If you enjoyed it, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel. Your engagement and comments truly motivate me to continue making big videos like this one. Of course, if you have any suggestions or ideas for future content, I'd love to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this Platinum journey. Stay tuned for more exciting adventures to come. Cheers, and I'll see you next time.